Welcome back to our series on Su Tungpo. In this episode, we'll explore his early life of fame and glory. When Su Tungpo and his brother are grown up as young men, almost ready to take their official exams. Naturally, the topic of marriage comes up. Parents preferred their sons to marry local girls from families they knew well. Su Tungpo got married when he was 17 to Miss Wang Fu, who was 15. Her family lived about 15 miles south in Qingshan, near the river. His younger brother married the next year when he was 16 to a girl who was 14. These early marriages were pretty typical at the time in China. The idea behind these early marriages was to save young people from the hassle and emotional stress of finding a match. It was considered better for them to settle down early. In China, parents supported their daughters-in-law, so there was no need to delay marriage. Plus, it was thought that a girl might as well love the man she was married to, even if the excitement of courtship was missing. Both Su brothers had happy marriages. Of course, parents didn't always get it right, and not every arranged marriage was a success. Marriages, whether arranged or not, are always a bit of a gamble. No one, not even the best parent or fortune teller, can predict exactly how a marriage will turn out. The main benefits of arranged marriages are that they're simpler, more efficient, and save time. Ultimately, while marriages might be made in heaven, they're lived out here on earth, and it's up to the couples to make them work. Right after the younger son got married, the Su brothers and their father decided to head to the capital. Their first stop was Chengdu, the provincial capital. There, they met Chang Fangping, a top official who would become almost like a father to Su Tungpo. The dad was also hoping to land a job. He was about 47 and had been working hard since failing his exams years ago. During that time, he wrote an important book on government, war, and peace, full of deep and original ideas, which he hoped would impress the scholars in the capital. At that time, there were ways to get a government job through the recommendation of a high-ranking official. So, he showed his work to Chang Fangping, who was really impressed and offered him a teaching position at the district college in Chengdu. But Su Sr. wasn't satisfied with just being a college teacher. His enthusiasm convinced Chang to write a letter of introduction to Ouyang Shu, the top writer in the country. Another friend, Lei, also wrote a letter praising Su Sr.'s talent, calling him a counselor of kings. With these letters in hand, the father and son set out for the capital. It was a long journey of over 2 months by land, through the high mountain ranges of northern Sichuan and Shenxi. They were determined and hopeful about the opportunities awaiting them in the capital. In May of 1056, the three Sus arrived at the capital and stayed at a Buddhist temple while they waited for the upcoming tests in the autumn. These preliminary tests, given by the Ministry of Education, would select candidates for the next spring exams, which the emperor himself would oversee. Out of 45 candidates from Meichao, both Su brothers made it into the successful 13. With nothing much to do until the palace exams in spring, they decided to explore the city and get to know the local society. Their father, Su Sun, submitted his writings to Ouyang Shu, the highly respected and beloved leader of the scholar community. Ouyang Shu was known for his genial manner, with unusually white long ears and a short upper lip that showed his gums when he laughed. Though not particularly handsome, meeting him and gaining his favor was a dream for many aspiring scholars. Ouyang Shu loved discovering and encouraging young talent, so he warmly received Su Sun. Thanks to this connection, Su Sun got invited to the home of Han Qi, a privy councillor, and was introduced to other high-ranking officials. However, Su Sun's somewhat aloof and self-important demeanor didn't win over the government leaders. Meanwhile, the young Su brothers spent their time exploring the streets, dining at famous restaurants, and standing in the cold to admire the renowned ministers passing by in their carriages. Kaifeng, the chief city of the Sung dynasty, was a fascinating place. Sung dynasty had 4 capitals, with Kaifeng, then called the eastern capital, or Dongjing, which would be pronounced Tokyo in Japanese, being the main one. The outer city was 13 miles in circumference, and the inner city was 7 miles around. The city had 12 gates with double and triple traps for enemies, and the city walls had horse heads resembling gun emplacements at regular intervals. Because the capital was on low-lying plains without much natural protection, except for the Yellow River to the north, a well-thought-out military defense plan was in place. When the time for the palace examinations finally came, it was a huge deal. The emperor nominated Ouyang Shu as the chief examiner, along with several distinguished scholars as judges. For the candidates, this was the most critical moment of their lives. They had spent years studying, burning the midnight oil, all leading up to this point. The air was filled with excitement, hope, and a lot of nervousness about the possibility of failure. The candidates had to get up in the middle of the night and arrive at the palace at dawn, bringing cold meals with them because they wouldn't be able to leave until the exams were over. During the exams, they were shut in small cubicles under the watchful eyes of palace guards. The system was very strict to prevent any cheating or favoritism. To avoid recognizing handwriting, official clerks recopied all the candidates' papers before submitting them to the examiners. The names were removed from the papers and kept on file to ensure anonymity. While the candidates were let out after the exams, the judges were kept inside the palace, completely isolated from the outside world. This period of isolation usually lasted from late January until early March, ensuring they could grade the papers without any external influence. The candidates first faced questions on history and government principles. Then there was a second round focusing on the classics. Finally, the successful ones were tested directly under the emperor's supervision on lyrics, descriptive poetry, fu, and more essays on politics. Emperor Zhenzong was especially keen on recruiting the best talent for his government, so he took a personal interest in these exams. He even sent out the subjects for the papers via his personal servants, and sometimes, to prevent any leaks, he would change the subjects at the last moment. This whole process was intense and nerve-wracking but designed to ensure only the most capable candidates succeeded. Both the Su brothers passed with high honors. Tungpo wrote a paper which Ouyang Shu later showed to his colleagues and admired for days. It dealt with the principle of simplicity and leniency in the administration of a country, which was Su Tungpo's basic philosophy of government. However, there was an unfortunate mistake. Ouyang Shu was so delighted with the brilliant style and content of the paper that he thought it must have been written by Zhengong, his student and friend. In order to avoid criticism, he shifted it from the first to the second place, and thus Su Tungpo came out second in the examinations. On April 8, 1057, Su passed the examinations, and on April 14, at the age of 20, was officially decorated a Qinshi, almost at the head of 388 successful candidates. To obtain such an honor meant that one became at once nationally known as one of the first scholars of the land. Passing an examination under a particular examiner created a strong bond between the scholar and the examiner, establishing a master-disciple relationship, menxia. Candidates would visit their master and the chief judges to pay their respects and write letters of gratitude. Ouyang Shu, being a literary authority, could significantly influence a scholar's career with just a word of praise or criticism. Imagine the impact on young Su Tungpo when Ouyang Shu remarked to a colleague, on reading Su Tungpo's letter, I perspired all over with joy. My old self must step aside and let this young man rise to the top. Such a statement from Ouyang Shu quickly spread throughout the capital. Ouyang Shu even told his sons, "Mark my words, 30 years from now, nobody will talk about me." This prediction came true. Within the first decade after Su Tungpo's death, Ouyang Shu was forgotten, while everyone still talked about Su Tungpo and secretly read his works, even when they were banned. Just as Su Tungpo was about to start his official career, his mother passed away. According to Confucian custom, even a premier had to retire and observe a 27-month mourning period before returning to office. Su Tungpo's eldest sister had died a few years earlier, leaving their mother alone with the daughters-in-law when all the men left for the examinations. She died without ever hearing the good news from the capital. The father and brothers hurried home to find their mother gone. After the proper ceremonies, the Su family chose a site for their family cemetery at a place called Old Man Spring, located at the foot of a mountain slope. The spring got its name from local legends that said on clear moonlit nights, an old man with white hair and a beautiful face could be seen sitting or reclining on the bank. However, he would disappear into the water when people approached. Later, Su Sun was buried in the same grave, and he became popularly known as Lao Chuan because of the name of this place. In his sacrificial prayer to his wife's spirit, Su Sun expressed his deep emotions. He said, "I know your heart as a mother did not wish for our children to have high official honors, but that they might be renowned in literature. When I was young, I wasted my talent, and I knew that in your heart, you were concerned lest I should die unknown. With a sigh, I decided to reform, and it is thanks to you that I have reached this day. In your grave, I have opened 2 chambers so that I may share the tomb with you when I die. I am old and alone in this wide world. After your death, who will give me good advice? I am going back to our old home to make improvements and alterations to our house. If your soul has not perished, come and visit us." During the 27 months of mourning, Su Tungpo enjoyed some of the happiest days of his youth. He and his brother lived with their young wives, and Tungpo frequently visited his wife's home in Qingshan, a beautiful area with mountains, streams, deep ponds, and Buddhist temples perched on high mountain tops. The region was rich with an air of mystery, romance, and legends. Tungpo often visited the temples or enjoyed picnics and drinking parties by the river near the Jutseo Bridge with his wife's uncles and cousins. On summer evenings, he sat outside their cottage eating melon seeds and hard-fried beans. His wife's family was large, including her father, Wang Chich, her 2 uncles, and their families. Meanwhile, Su Sun, Tungpo's father, was waiting for a government appointment. Mourning for a wife did not prevent him from holding office, unlike mourning for a mother. Although high officials in the capital had promised to help, no news had arrived for over a year. Finally, an imperial edict came, asking him to go to the capital and submit to special examinations. This request filled him with dread. By this time, he had developed a phobia about exams. He wrote to the emperor, declining the invitation, citing old age and poor health. In a letter to a friend, he explained, "I do not necessarily want to be an official, nor do I decline on principle to be one. Why should I, at this dignified old age, submit myself to the disgrace of being judged by official examiners and become a laughingstock? I have already submitted my works to Ouyang Shu. If he considers them good, why should there be further examinations? If he cannot believe the best that I have written, how can he rely upon the tests of a day?" In another letter to a high official named Mei, he said, "I have never been able to conform to the standards of the judges, and that is why I have not succeeded to this day. I remember how when I was young and preparing to go into the examination hall, I got up at midnight, packed my rice and cakes, and stood at dawn before the Eastern Palace gate. Then we filed in together and cowered over our desks. Every time I think about that scene, my heart shudders. By June of the following year, 1059, he received another order from the government, similar to the first. There was no mention of any special exemption from examinations. Su Sun was not willing to be quizzed like a schoolboy, so he declined again. He was about 50 years old and felt he could not contribute significantly to the country at this stage. He believed a scholar should go into government only to serve the country or live humbly if not. However, he hinted that he was willing to go to the capital if influential people ensured his papers would not be graded like those of school children. Su Sun was ready to leave his Sichuan home forever after his wife's death. It was clear that he belonged in the capital. His 2 sons had obtained official degrees, and the next step was to seek government positions for them, if not for himself. Less than 2 months after the mourning period, the family set out for the capital again, this time with the young wives. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Stay tuned for the next installment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights into the life of Su Tungpo.